sweetheart.
I'm working on that. You know, I never will forget the first time I came here. I guess it's been about maybe 6 years ago or something. Charlie Parker was going to be the presenter of Step 1, 2, and 3 on Friday night. And he called me and was just getting some ideas about doing Step 1, 2, and 3. And he said, I've got, like 45 minutes. And I said, wow, man. I said, I'm glad it's you and not me. I wouldn't want to have just 45 minutes to do something as intense as 1, 2, and 3, And about Wednesday or Thursday night or something right before this thing, he called me and said, can y'all hear me all right? Da-da. He called me and said, hey, Dave, they've moved me to another slot, and they asked me if I knew someone else to do 1, 2, and 3, and I said, you. So I loaded up the Harley. I thought, it's October, nice time to ride the bike. I loaded the saddlebags, and I get on, and I'm backing out the driveway, and Charlie calls and says, hey, Dave, I think this is one of them affairs where you need to wear a jacket. I said, I've got on my Harley jacket, Charlie. He said, that's not what I'm talking about. I said, Charlie, I don't even own one of them other ones. So he went and rented one or something, got this jacket, and he brought me. I got in here, and he rushed me in the bathroom, and he's fixing me up, and he's getting the lint off, and he says, turn around. I turn around, and he does this, and he says, okay, that looks good. He said, no, wait, here's something else right here. And finally I said, God, I'm glad I don't have one of these things. And he got me all fixed up because I had on my wife beater tank top, and so they put this jacket over me, and they pulled this thing up real tight like this. And then I'm walking in here, and they say, have you ever done a workshop on steps 1, 2, and 3? And I said, I've had 3 guys in my living room this week doing steps 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to tell y'all what I told them. And that's just kind of what I do. I was asked to do a step 5 thing one time. It was one of them step speaker meetings and then a discussion afterward. And I did step 5, and the guy said, well, that's the first time I've ever heard anybody present a step from the sponsor's perspective, not from the sponsee's perspective. Well, I never considered doing it any other way. You ask me, how do you do step 5? I'm going to show you the way I do it with a sponsee, not talk to you about how my sponsor drugged me through it. I guess you can do either way, but I just always kind of come from the sponsor's perspective. But anyway, I never will forget that first time. So Charlie said, just keep this jacket. When he called me back and says, I've got a jacket, Dave, that I think will work for you. And he said, it's blue. And I said, I think it'll look good with blue jeans. I said, I hope so. And so then, I think it was about that same year, Paul Alexander had on this fabulous little bolo tie, and someone said, wow, Dave, look at his tie. And I'm looking at it, and I said, I could stand to wear one of those because I hate them other kind, He said, I've got an extra one. I'll send it to you. So now, when I get asked to do things like this, I've got Charlie Parker's jacket that he gave me and Paul Alexander's tie that he loaned me, and I guess I can fit in. So, but I actually told Norma last year when I was here, do y'all notice what's missing? My horns. I wear devil horns the whole month of October wherever I go. And last year I'm sitting here with these devil horns on, and we had a fella sharing about how where he comes from, men take their hats off when they prayed. Y'all remember that last year? And I heard Al today say, gentlemen, would you remove your hats? And when he said that last year, I thought, oh, God, I'm really upsetting him with these devil horns on. So I decided this year I wouldn't wear them. And Norma said, if you're going to start representing AA, you might want to try to look a little better. And I did tell her, though, I said, Norma, this is the 3rd year in a row we've gone to this thing without the bike. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to do it another year. So next year I'm hoping to be on the bike. Anyway, thank y'all a lot for having me out again. So I'm asked to present on steps 8, 9, and 10. And Al said, how would you like to do steps 8, 9, and 10? I said, those are my favorite steps. And then I hung up and I thought, he could have asked me to do 5 and 6. And I would have said, it's my favorite step. How do you decide what's your favorite steps? You just go, wow, them are great steps. So So what I'm going to do here, first of all, you know, our steps, our program is a whole system. And it's kind of like a picture puzzle. If I took a picture puzzle and I dumped it out on the table and broke it all into pieces, and then I picked up one little piece and I said, okay, can you tell me what this picture is? And you go, looks like sky, maybe with a little cloud in the corner. I go, that's good, that's real good. Now, tell me, is it upside down or right side up? Well, you don't know until you look at it in the rest of the picture. And that's kind of the way the steps are. If you want to talk about a step, you got to kind of fit it into the whole picture to really make it make sense. So I'm going to give you just kind of a quick overview of up to step 8, 9, and 10 and show you how that fits into the picture. So we're just going to start, you know, step 1 and 2 real quick. Step 1 has 2 parts to it, A and B. One is I admit I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life is unmanageable. I always thought that meant that because I can't stop drinking, my life is all crazy. Well, it does mean that, but what I later discovered is that even when I stop drinking, life seems to even get more crazy. And that's why I go back to drinking. That's what alcoholism is. Alcoholism ain't that I'm drinking and I have a problem. Alcoholism is if I start drinking, it turns into a problem. If I stop drinking, it turns into a problem. It's always the life stuff. Life gets me in a headlock and makes me go back to drinking every time. That's called an alcoholic mind. When I say I'm going to quit drinking, then my alcoholic mind just starts rubbing my face in every little thing about life until it irritates the crap out of me and makes me want to go back to drinking. And if I'm going to solve this dilemma, I've got to solve my not drinking problem if I'm going to not drink. So when I get to step 3, it tells me that I'm going to make a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God. It ain't about drinking anymore. It's about how to do not drinking. Made a decision to turn this living problem over to God is what step 3 is about. It says, just what do we mean by that and just what do we do? Two very important questions. Just what does it mean to turn your living problem over to God so that maybe you can stay sober? And just what do you do? And from that point on the bottom of page 60, the rest of our steps is to answer those 2 questions. Just what does it mean to turn your will and life over to the care of God? Just what do you do to consummate that decision? And it says, well, the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will is not going to be a success. It says that each of us is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, the rest of the players in his own way. It says that I'm driven by 100 forms of self-fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. God, that means I got a lot of voices in my head by now. And that's not drinking. That's where we go not drinking. Voices in my head trying to help me manage life. And it says, well, here's the how and why, but now we're going to answer question number 1. Just what does it mean? There's an A and B part to each of them questions. Just what does it mean to turn your will and life over to the care of God? Well, this is the how and why of it. First of all, A, we had to quit playing God. It doesn't work. When I play God, poof, all these voices in my head come up to try to help me. And one of them is a drink disguised as just one of the other voices. So first of all, I got to quit playing God. And next, in this B, here's the B part of the question. Next, in the drama of life. God, that's what it turns into, isn't it? Drama. In the drama of life, I'm better learn how to let God become my director. That's the how and why of the program right there. That means that something about this program is to help me tune out all the voices in my head and to try to tune in another voice that's going to try to come through my heart and become my director through all this drama. That means if I'm an alcoholic, I got to somehow learn how to not live in my head so much. It's crazy. And I've got to learn to tap into my heart and another voice there. And there's a process required for me to get to that experience of my God being my director. And it says that it's going to require the destruction of self-centeredness. It is a process. The 12 and 12 says all of AA's 12 steps ask us to go contrary to our natures. They all deflate our egos. When I deflate my ego, I let God come into my soul. When I inflate my ego, I push God out. And almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, and the confession of shortcomings, which this process requires. For me to turn down the voice, I got to dismantle all the voices in my head so that I can begin to find that other voice. And it requires the destruction of self-centeredness. Bill Wilson said, belief in the power of God. First of all, I got to believe there is another voice that I can find. Belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things. Enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain a God-guided conscience. So when I made the decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God, it says when we sincerely took such a position, you know, that word sincerely is, when we sincerely took such a position, you know, we got to get sincere about this program. I think it was it Donna last night that talked about, you know, we have to do it for ourselves. I can't be coming in here trying to make somebody think that I'm trying. You know, my wife, get the judge off my back. You know, I can be doing recovery as a part of the game I'm playing. And at some point, I got to get sincere. Somebody mentioned surrender. And that takes a little bit of willingness, honesty, and humility to be sincere about my attempt to want to work this program. And when I sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. This is step 3. We had a new employer being all powerful. He provided what we needed if, the biggest if in the whole big book, because all powerful, providing whatever I need. Whoa, God, there's a lot at stake. Hangs on if I can agree to keep close to him and perform his work well. So the first directions from my new director is, okay, I'll take over the management of your life. I'll do all kind of remarkable things to remove your difficulties and provide what you need if you will agree that you will keep close to him and perform his work well. Now, I want you to notice that. This is on page 63. I hammered the hell out of it because right there, God will do this if I will do this. And there's nothing else that he asked me to do. Learn how to keep close to him and perform his work well. There's nothing else. And it says established on such a footing. What does that mean? That there is nothing else but that. That means that all of the rest of the steps in one way or another have to pertain to keeping close to him or performing his work well. It's inventory and service. Inventory and service. All of the steps pertain to inventory and service, and there is nothing else. These two exercises of inventory and service will establish and maintain a God-guided conscience. They're ego-deflating exercises. And so, step 4, we moved on into step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. It requires a little bit more getting willing, a little bit more being honest, and a little bit more of being humble. It's getting deeper. And so we begin to realize that these resentments, what was driving that resentment was a fear. We learned that in step 4 in this inventory. And it says we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We set them on paper. We asked ourselves why we had them. I can see me now in some shrink's office. Here, lay down on this couch, and we're going to analyze your phobias. We're going to review your fears thoroughly. We're going to ask yourself why you had them. From when did you start having this? Was it in your childhood? What happened? And it says perhaps there's a better way. If you don't have any other way, go to the shrink. But perhaps there's a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis. And I always ask my sponsors, when did you get on a different basis? We're right in the middle of step 4. It says you're on a different basis. When did you get on a different basis, friend? I say, was it back at step 3? Oh, yeah, that's right. I turned my will and life over to care of God, didn't I? That's right. And you agreed that you would do certain things if he would take over the management of your life. Now the basis of your life is that when you do this, God does this. That's a whole new approach. And just to the extent that I will do what he asked me to do, inventory and service, he will match all my calamities with serenity. So step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. Oh, God. Now it's getting deep now. This humility thing, this willing and honest with another person and humble, it's kind of getting deep. And the promises after step 5 says that we begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. One of the greatest promises of step 5 is there's enough ego deflation starting to happen here that I'm beginning to feel the nearness of my Creator. And step 6 says that I'm entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Entirely ready to move forward. Are you ready to go deeper? If I still cling to something I will not let go, ask God to help me be willing. I might even have to ask God to help me be willing to be willing. Someone said step 6 separates the men from the boys, and that's because we're right here at the point where it says, are you ready to move on? Because it's going to get deeper. If you're a little bit scared, ask God to help you. And step 7, humbly ask him to remove your shortcomings. Now, we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. I want you to know that we are now being plunged deep into willingness. Do you have it? Honesty. Can you say it? Humbly. Can you say it face to face to the people you've hurt? It's getting deep. Newcomer one time in our meeting, they handed him how it works. He'd probably never seen it before, and he's reading long, and he's going, and here are the steps we took, which are suggested 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, admitted to 6, and he got to 7, 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. Made directly, he said, Jesus Christ, have y'all read this? This is where it's getting serious here. You say, oh, we lose people at step 4 and 5. We lose them at 8 and 9. Step 5 promised that you could begin to, if you think step 4 and 5 was hard, step 8 and 9 is harder. It says, although there's some general principles, this is in step 8 and 9, although some general principles which we find guiding. This is where the word guidance first comes into our program, step 9. There are some general principles. These reparations take innumerable forms. There are some general principles which we find guiding, reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience This is what we mean by any links. Step 8 and 9. We ask for strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences might be. We might lose our position, our reputation. We might even face jail. But we are willing. We have to be. Step 8 and 9 is plunging you so deep into willingness, honesty, and humility that for the first time you might begin to hear the voice of God. Do you remember the how and the why of our program was for God to become my director? And I've got to try to find that voice through all the other noise in my head and lock onto that voice and learn to live life and not lose it in all the noise. Step 5 brought me nearer to my Creator. Step 9 brings me into a position where I can begin to receive guidance from the voice of my Creator. The how and why of the program begins here in step 8 and 9. And it says in the 12 and 12, after we have made our list, we reflect carefully upon each instance. We try to possess ourselves of the right attitude in which to proceed. We prepare ourselves well in advance. That's preparation. This is actually where meditation becomes a part of our program. It's, my sponsors say, well, how do I go about this? I've got this list of names. Who do you think I should do first? I say, don't ask me, ask God. What do you think I should say? Don't ask me, ask God. I'm not going to rob you of the experience of letting God become your director. You're more than welcome to come and share with me what you think God might want you to say. But I'm going to send you to go get it. Are you willing enough to make these amends? Can you be honest enough about your part? Can you be humble enough to go see them face to face if possible? Then ask God to go with you and watch him show up. And don't ever go knock on a door. Well, I have to be careful saying don't ever. Half of you probably already done it by somebody else's instructions. But I tell my sponsees, I want you to sit with God and ask God all the questions you want to ask me. Where should I start? With which name? What should I say? Exactly what do you think I did? Ask all them and start writing. And there's a process. It's the writing is where the process begins. And just pick up your pen and write a little script. Just a little script. A paragraph. And get started. Let God help you write it. We ask for strength and direction to do the right thing. And we reflect carefully. We try to discern the voice of God. God's voice doesn't have words on it. It's a heart-to-heart communication. And I'm trying to discern it and put the words on it. And so I start writing. Those of you who write poetry or songs, it's the same thing. You get an inspiration. You feel it, and you start trying to put it on paper. And you know how it is. I've written songs. I get a song written, and then tomorrow I'll come back and pick it up and read it and go, I need to change this line. Or I need to change a word here. Sometimes, I've written a whole song in 30 minutes, and sometimes I've written a song that has gone through changes and changes and changes for a month before I feel like it's done. And I'm through rewriting it. Do the same thing. In your preparation. This is a God experience. Experience God helping you receive an inspiration and feel it and begin to take that inspiration and put it on paper. Come back tomorrow and look at it and see if it still feels like it's just right. And if not, change it. And when you get it ready and you say, it's just like a painting. How many painters paint, lay their brushes down, come back tomorrow and they go, I need to touch this up here, or I need to put a little paint over here. Do that. Gain the experience of tuning in the voice of God. And what's funny is that right in the middle of step 9, it says, at the moment we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. Do you know why I'm trying to learn how to receive inspiration, guidance, and direction from God? Primarily, to be of service. To be of service. And the promises after step 9, once I'm beginning to have this experience of really feeling and discerning God's guidance and inspiration, the natural reaction to that, I begin to lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Suddenly I'm wanting, you just naturally start caring about other people. If God rubs off on you too much, you start caring about other people. And that's about the only way I can do it, really. Our whole attitude and outlook toward life will change. It's not about me anymore. It's about God directing me to try to help you. Now, there is a side benefit to learning to discern the voice of God, and it says that in the 9th step promises too. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. That's one of the side benefits. In my personal life, I feel the same thing. God saying, giving me guidance on how to solve or approach or address or deal with much of life's problems. And most of the time what he tells me is quit worrying about that. What I need to hear God so much about is to hear him say, don't do that. No, don't do that. I tell people for a long time I'd hear God say, you shouldn't have said that, dummy. You shouldn't have done that. But with practice, I hear him say, don't do that. Don't say that. Common sense will thus become uncommon sense. And all of that develops through step 9, asking God for strength to do these amends and direction how he wants me to go about it. And gaining the experience of not only feeling God, but discerning his guidance. And this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. Step 9 brought me into a new way of living. What's that? We have entered the world of the Spirit. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Why? Well, because the exercise that brought me into the world of the Spirit and this conscious place with God is what's going to keep me here. Where? In the world of the Spirit. So I'm going to continue to do inventory, to stay in touch with the conscious contact with God. Bill said to establish and maintain this conscious contact where God can be my director. And here's how you're going to keep close to him and perform his work well. Page 84, paragraph 2. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. 4 things we continue to watch for. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when these crop up, there's 4 things we're going to do about it. We're going to ask God at once to remove them, discuss them with someone immediately, and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. That's all the inventory. Then, resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. There's the service. Inventory and service is what our program is. And those are my first directions. If I need some kind of directions from God, I know what it is first. First, inventory what I'm concerned about or bothered about or disturbed about. Discuss it with my sponsor quickly. Make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone. Turn my thoughts to someone I can help. And if God needs to talk to me any further about that problem, any further directions will follow me obeying my first ones. Keep close to him and perform his work well. Any further directions will follow those. Most of the time, no further directions need to come. Once I've completed that, half the time I see the problem seems to just sort of be working itself out. But I know there's an invisible hand doing it. I remember, how much time do I have? I'll lose track of time. Well, it's inventory and service are my first directions, and remember, there is nothing else. And step 10 is about learning to be a little more at once, a little more immediately, a little more quickly, and a little more resolutely turning your thoughts to someone you can help under pressure that wants to say, it's all about me. No, it ain't. Never. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, Dave, he'd been going to meetings with me every day, and he said, I think I'm going to have to not go to quite so many meetings. I got to start looking for a job. I said, that's right. You probably do need to look for a job. I said, you can look for a job all you want with one eye. You must keep the other eye on your program, inventory and service. I said, the day that life convinces you that it needs your full attention and you put both eyes on life, you've fallen for the bait of the alcoholic mind. That's what it wants you to do. So, under pressure, can I keep a little bit of thinking about others going on? I remember when I had a situation where I was trying to break a particular habit, and I told my sponsor I'd give him my word that if I did that, I'd always call him and tell him. I hate it. You're new in recovery. You hate to have to call and tell on yourself, So, but I'd gotten to where I wasn't doing that very often and was real proud of the fact that I hadn't had to call him and tell him in a long time, and it wasn't very often. And one day I called him and said, well, I hate to tell you, but, I'd done that. And I didn't feel too bad about it because it had been a long time. But as soon as I hung up the phone, doggone, within about 2 or 3 days, I did it again. And now I didn't want to have to call him and tell him I'd done it again so soon. And I said, God, I know I've got to call him and tell him, but I said, I just don't want to tell him that I did it that quick. I said, I tell you what, God, I'll tell him in 30 days, okay? And I didn't hear God say anything, and so I took it as a yes. And so, every night I'd go to bed, do my inventory, and it says, are you keeping something to yourself which you'd be discussed with another person at once? And I go, yes, God, I am, but God, I'm going to tell him in 29 more days, God, I promise. 28 more days, God, just be patient, I promise. I'm going to tell you. 27 more days, God, just hang on. And I got down to about 17 more days to go. I'm keeping count of it. And one day, we'd finished having dinner. Somebody just mowed my yard. I was standing at the sink washing dishes. The window was, oh, howdy, I forgot you were there. I had the window open. I could smell the new mowed grass. It smelled good. I was listening to the birds out there scratching on the grass and digging up bugs, whatever they do. And I was thinking how nice it smelled, springtime. And it was like one of them little birdies just flew through the window and landed on my head and started singing this song of a phone number I remembered of somebody where I could call up and score some pills that I really liked. And what was weird was I was drifting away with that thought, and it started to sink some teeth into me. It's called the obsession returning. And I shook my head, and I thought, where did that come from? And then I knew. And I ran to the phone and grabbed it and called my sponsor. And he said, how are you? I said, I'm good now that I got you on the phone. I said, I should have called you a week and a half ago and I said, I told him the little story, and he thought it was cute and funny. But when I hung up the phone, the obsession was gone. Now I know where that comes from. The alcoholic mind was starting to take control. It's starting to want the ego to take over again and defend itself and hide its secrets and and it'll lead you right back to a drink. And so, and it wasn't probably a few months after that, I had another situation where it happened twice in a row. And it's, oh, God, I don't want to tell him that I did it again so soon, And I put it off for 3 days. And I'm sitting there going, oh, God, oh, God. And I'm saying, I know what's going to happen if I don't call him. It took me 3 days that time to get the courage. So I got a little more at once and a little more immediately. But I want you to know that it don't take me no time today. You have to practice that step 10, becoming a little more at once. We ask God at once. We discuss it immediately. We make amends quickly. Sometimes we don't. We're trying to get a little quicker. And the inventory part of that and the discussing it, it's ego deflation. It's turning down the voices in my head that immediately jump in and saying, look, I'll show you how to cover this up. Got to watch them voices. Because those are the voices that one day will say, you could probably have some whiskey if you put it in milk. It's the same ones. It's ego deflation. I got to keep them things under wrap, and that's inventory that does it. And service, turning my thoughts to others. I got to always remember that this whole God thing ain't about me. It's about who I can help. God just gets to use me. And I just get to be a little part of him using me. And when I turn my thoughts to someone else I can help, it turns up the voice in my heart. The inventory turns down the voices in my head, and the service to others turns up the voice in my heart. And if I will keep doing that, I will continue to have a new director that guides me through the drama of life. And along that way, I begin to have a divine sense of purpose to my life. And every day, it says, is a day I must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? My primary question to God is, how can I best serve thee? These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. And this line, notice it says this line. It doesn't say these lines, those lines, this line. Do you know why isn't it funny that our primary purpose, keeping close to him and performing his work well, those are not two different things. That paraphrases into our primary purpose, to stay sober and help another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. And notice they're not called our primary purposes. It's our primary purpose. Those two things intertwine into one cord. The reason I keep close to him is primarily to perform his work well. And we can exercise our thinking along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. And for that, God promises that he will manage my life. If I will just stay in tune to that, he will manage my life and provide what I need. And just knowing that if I can stay doing what God's asked me to do, and just to the extent that I do that, he'll match my calamities with serenity, like he promised. And just being in touch with that greatly quietens the voices in my head and matches all my calamities with serenity. And without the divine spark igniting the vision of my primary purpose, my mission on earth, without that sense of my divine mission, sobriety of itself, without that, can become pretty dry. If you're sober just to stay sober, I wonder how long you'll last. If you catch the vision of your purpose in AA, we have been given a great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives, the big book says. Much has already been said about, this is step 10, ending right here. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed these directions, we have begun to sense the flow of his Spirit into us. Followed what directions? A little more at once, a little more immediately, a little more quickly, a little more resolutely, turning my thoughts to someone I can help. Inventory and service. If I've carefully followed these directions, I'm beginning to sense the flow of his Spirit into me. To some extent, I'm becoming God conscious. I'm beginning to develop this vital sixth sense. It becomes more intuitive as we go and as we practice. And if I carefully practice this and follow these directions, I develop this sudden growing awareness of God's guidance. And I'm going to bring that to step 11 and let it teach me how to improve my conscious contact with God. Thank you.